During a time when the fate of men was shaped by the gods' whims, there rose Agamemnon, the Lion King of Mycenae, the son of King Atreus and Queen Arope. He was born into a bloodline steeped in violence and revenge. His father Atreus had been the victim of a dreadful betrayal by his own brother Thyestes, sparking a bloody curse that hung over the family. Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus were raised under the burden of this legacy. Agamemnon's childhood was suddenly cut short by his father's betrayal and murder at the hands of his mother's lover, Aegisthus. The young princes had to flee Mycenae, finding shelter at the court of Tyndareus, king of Sparta. There they found safety and protection, growing up under the king's tutelage and alongside his beautiful daughters Helen and Clytemnestra. His ambition and untamed spirit meant that Agamemnon was not happy with exile. He longed for the throne of Mycenae, his birthright. Aided by Menelaus and the Spartan army, he marched against Aegisthus, defeating the usurper and reclaiming the throne that was rightfully his. Reaching the zenith of his power, Agamemnon cemented his rule over Mycenae and extended his influence throughout Greece. He married Clytemnestra, daughter of Tyndareus, firmly entrenching his alliance with Sparta. This marriage gave birth to fruitful offspring that included Iphigenia, Electra, Orestes, and Chrysothemis, heirs to a golden and tragic legacy. Agamemnon's rise to power coincided with a turning point in Greek history, the oath of Tyndareus. Attracted by Helen's matchless beauty, countless suitors gathered in Sparta to compete for her hand. Under Odysseus's advice, Tyndareus, fearful of the consequences of his choice, ordered all the suitors to pledge to defend Helen's future husband against any threat. Together with other heroes such as Odysseus and Achilles, Agamemnon took the oath, sealing his fate and that of Greece in a pact of blood and honor through the holy sacrifice of a horse. Agamemnon, the Lion King of Mycenae, found himself on top of his power, with a prosperous kingdom, a family, and an alliance that made him the most prominent leader in Greece. Agamemnon's kingdom's peace and prosperity were brought to an abrupt halt by the echo of an event that would shake the very foundations of the Greek world: Helen's abduction, the wife of his brother Menelaus, by the Trojan prince Paris. Tyndareus' oath, once a distant promise, turned into a call to arms, a sacred duty to defend honor and family. As the most powerful Greek king and leader of the alliance forged in Sparta, Agamemnon donned the mantle of supreme commander. He rallied Helen's former suitors and other Greek leaders, assembling a colossal army of legendary heroes, such as Achilles, Odysseus, Ajax, and Diomedes, each leading their own troops and ships. Greece joined together under Agamemnon's baton, ready to launch a bloody war against Troy in pursuit of revenge and Helen's return. But the Greek fleet came up against an unforeseen obstacle. The winds would not blow, preventing the ships from setting sail. The seer Calchas unveiled the cause of the divine wrath. The goddess of the hunt, Artemis, demanded a sacrifice, none other than Iphigenia, his own daughter. She was calling for retribution since the powerful nobleman had killed one of her sacred animals and even equated himself with the gods. In a cruel dilemma, Agamemnon was torn between the love for his daughter and his duty to his kingdom and the Greek alliance. Ultimately, the decision he made, perhaps the most difficult of his life, would scar him forever as a ruthless leader and a tormented father. With a heavy heart, he consented to sacrificing Iphigenia, duping his wife Clytemnestra by luring her to Aulis under the pretext of a marriage to Achilles. Iphigenia's death on the sacrificial altar placated Artemis's wrath, allowing the Greek fleet to finally set sail for Troy. But the sacrifice marked a deep wound in Agamemnon's soul and sowed the seeds of discord in his marriage to Clytemnestra, vowing revenge for her daughter's death. The Trojan War raged for 10 long and bloody years. As supreme commander, Agamemnon endured constant challenges. He led the Greeks in countless battles, courageously and strategically. But his pride and fiery temper also caused friction with other heroes, especially Achilles, Greece's most powerful warrior. War loot, a symbol of victory and glory, became the breeding ground for discord between the supreme commander Agamemnon and Achilles, Greece's most formidable warrior. Following a victorious battle, Agamemnon and Achilles were given 2 young captives as part of the booty. Chryses, the daughter of a priest of Apollo, and Briseis, an exceptionally beautiful princess. Achilles, profoundly attracted to Briseis, viewed her as more than just a slave. He treated her with respect and fondness, while her presence was reassuring in the face of all the brutal warfare. On the other hand, Agamemnon saw Chryses as a symbol of his status and power. Chryses' father and a priest of Apollo, reached the Greek camp begging for his daughter's release. He offered a generous ransom, but Agamemnon, struck by pride, refused to free the young woman, humiliating the priest and challenging Apollo's authority. Apollo's wrath was expressed in a devastating pestilence that ravaged the Greek army. Soldiers were falling ill and dying in droves, with despair spreading through the camp. Calchas, the Greek army's seer, inspired by Apollo, revealed the cause of the plague and the only remedy for it: give Chryses back to her father and appease the god's wrath. Confronted with this prophecy and the growing pressure from his men, Agamemnon was forced to yield. But his wounded pride called for reparation. In a petty act of revenge, he ordered Briseis, Achilles' sweetheart, to be taken as his own slave. Agamemnon's decision ignited Achilles' wrath. Dishonored and betrayed by his leader, he swore to withdraw from the battle and no longer fight on the Greek side. The discord between both heroes reached its peak, dividing their army and threatening the war's outcome. Agamemnon's hubris and Achilles' anger, fostered by divine intervention, plunged the Greek camp into a deep crisis. Achilles' absence from action made victory over Troy increasingly remote. Once a matter of honor and revenge, the war became a battleground for bruised egos and the struggle for power, bringing devastating consequences for everyone involved. The war raged on without Achilles, and the Greeks sustained heavy casualties. The absence of their greatest warrior was acutely felt with each battle, and victory seemed ever more difficult. In his reluctance, Agamemnon started to understand his error of judgment. Pride and revenge had blurred his reason, jeopardizing the fate of the war and his men's lives. Reconciliation became evident, but the road to peace was uncertain. With his pride swallowed, Agamemnon set about making an even greater sacrifice, returning Briseis to Achilles, with the hope of convincing him to return to battle. The fate of the war and Greece's future hinged on the ability of both heroes to overcome their differences and join forces against their common enemy. Fortunately for Agamemnon, the death of Patroclus, Achilles' inseparable friend, killed by the Trojan prince Hector, led Achilles and his Myrmidon warriors back to the battlefield. After 10 years of bloody war, Greek cleverness finally triumphed. The wooden horse strategy allowed them to sneak into the city, opening the gates to the army waiting outside. The fall of Troy was ruthless and merciless. It was sacked and burned, its inhabitants massacred or enslaved. But the Greek victory came at a high price, with the loss of countless heroes and the destruction of a glorious city. As supreme commander, Agamemnon headed the war booty division. He claimed Cassandra, the Trojan princess and prophetess, whose beauty and prophetic gifts captivated him. With ships packed with treasure and captives, he set off back to Mycenae, anxious to return to his kingdom and revel in the glory of his victory. Yet revenge awaited Agamemnon in Mycenae. His wife, Clytemnestra, never forgave the sacrifice of her daughter Iphigenia. During Agamemnon's long absence, she conspired with Aegisthus, her lover and Agamemnon's cousin, to murder the king and seize the Mycenaean throne. Agamemnon's return was welcomed with a feigned display of joy and a welcoming banquet. While Agamemnon was taking a bath, unsuspecting and tired from the long journey, Clytemnestra and Aegisthus brutally attacked and murdered him. Helpless to avoid the fate she had foreseen, Cassandra was also killed. Agamemnon's murder heralded the end of an era and the dawn of a bloody vengeance cycle that would haunt the house of Atreus for generations. Orestes, Agamemnon's son, prompted by filial duty and the fury of the gods, was to return to Mycenae and avenge his father's death by killing Clytemnestra and Aegisthus, fulfilling the relentless cycle of violence and tragedy that characterized the lineage of Atreus. Agamemnon's tale is one of ambition, power, sacrifice, and revenge. He was a powerful leader, a valiant warrior, and an ambitious king, but also a man plagued by misjudgments and the cruelty of fate. His role in the Trojan War brought him glory, but his hubris and his thirst for power led to his downfall.